friends. I'm your host, Erin Port, and welcome to the Simple Purposeful Living podcast. Life can be overwhelming and busy, so once a week, I invite you to join me, and together we will make simple tweaks to uncomplicate the hard parts of our life so we can spend more time doing what we love.
Thank you so much for having me, Erin. I'm just so honored, and I'm excited to get to talk about this topic that is something that I'm very passionate about.
So many women today are feeling lonely, even when surrounded by so many people. So, why do you think friendship has become such a struggle in this season of life?
I think that we as moms have a lot on our plate, or if you're just women who have a lot on your plate, it can just feel like friendship is one more to do, which I absolutely disagree with that because I feel like it is so life-giving and it is something that you get to. But it can feel like that. It can feel like that's the thing that's going to be put on the back burner. I also feel like because of social media, we kind of have this idea in our head that we have a lot of friends when they're actually not people that we know on a deep level, but because we're interacting with them online, it feels like we have some sort of community. But that is not face-to-face community, which I'm such a fan of because it makes such a difference when we have these deep conversations with people who know us and who are in our homes and in our lives, and it's not just something through a screen.
I agree. I think there is this false sense of community that we find online. And I always tell people when I'm interacting with them, I would love to be your friend. And in many ways, I feel like that. Like, I feel like we're friends, but it's not that same, like you said, in person, doing life together in each other's homes, in each other's business life. And you've shared so candidly about insecurity and past friendship hurts. Can you share a little bit of that experience? And when did you realize friendship was something you needed to be more intentional about?
It's interesting because growing up, I grew up in a family where there were seven kids and we were homeschooled and we lived out in the country. And so my parents just always were like, your brothers and sisters are your friends, which is great. I'm so close with my siblings and so grateful for them. But I realized that it didn't really prepare me for how to build friendships with people who aren't your family. And as my husband and I got married and then we moved away for him to go to law school, I had to start over and not just start over, but kind of start from the ground up. And I realized I don't know how to do friendship. I don't know how to build friendship because I went from living at home, being homeschooled, didn't go to college to moving in and being married with my husband. And so that was a real challenge and journey for me. And I did it really poorly in the beginning. And a lot of it had to do with my own approval, my need for approval. I call it my approval idol, where just really I was chasing after wanting from other people what I can only get from God. And I was trying to get them to like me and want to be with me and approve of me. And so by chasing after that, I would really twist myself into whatever I thought they wanted me to be in order to be my friend. And it really produced some very dysfunctional and unhealthy relationships because you can't get from people what only God can give you.
Mm, so true. And I think to your point about growing up and even whether you were homeschooled or not, I think it was Laura Tremaine that first said this to me, which was eye-opening, is that when you're a kid, all of your friends are in proximity to you. So you're in school with them or you're at home with them. It's really easy because you're all right there. And then you grow up into an adulthood and people aren't just right there, right? You're not all stuck together in a classroom or at home. And so I think it's hard for everybody. And I think it almost comes as an adult, like we think we're the only ones, but really we're all trying to figure out, like, what does it look like to be a friend in adulthood when I am not in proximity in the same way as I was as a kid?
Yeah, and for me, I think it was just I had so much deep-seated dysfunction in my heart that I didn't know and didn't recognize until I addressed that. I really couldn't be a good friend because I was chasing after the wrong thing in friendship. And the other thing I realized is that I would put people up on a pedestal in a sense of like making them into the friend that I wanted them to be and expecting things from them that they couldn't give me, and then being disappointed when they didn't give that to me. And that's a recipe for real disappointment in relationships.
Yeah, I've been there. And I think you've mentioned in the past that 2020 was a year where you had a friendship breakup. I also had a friendship breakup in 2020. That time I think was just so stressful for so many people. But to your point, that relationship for me, I held on to it so tightly. I share in my book that I strangled it because things were shifting, things were changing, and I didn't want that relationship to change. And so I clung so tightly that I basically just strangled it to death. And looking back, I was able to go back to that person and say, like, I'm sorry for my part that I played, and we've, forgiven one another. We're in different seasons now, but I think it's important for people to know that they're not the only one who's experienced that because there was a lot of shame that I had. Like, I'm a horrible friend. I'm not worthy of friendship. And I felt very lonely and very not desirous of finding other friends. Did you ever feel that way?
I definitely did. And I think I really went through, I would say, so I got married when I was 21, and I would say it was probably not until I was about 37, over 15 years, where I really struggled to figure out how to do this friendship thing. And I would say that I had a string of broken relationships in my wake. And I kept feeling like, what is wrong with me? Like, why am I not worth fighting for? Why are people just walking away whenever it gets hard? Or why are they choosing someone else and not me? And, you know, a lot of that, honestly, looking back, I realized it was my own, really, it was my own unhealth. And I found that the healthier that I've gotten as a person, the better I've gotten in relationships and in choosing people who are healthier, kind of learning the red flags earlier. But also, I think to recognize, I was just telling someone this the other day, that there are also someone close in my life is going through a friendship breakup right now that's really, really difficult. And it's someone that has been in their life since they were a little child. And it's just years and years of relationship that all of a sudden is not there anymore and is just falling apart and really hard. And I was telling them how sometimes it has nothing to do with you and everything to do with another person, that they, something is triggered in them or something has changed in them or something like that. And so to recognize there are times when you don't have anything to own. I think there are also times when you do have things to own, like you were talking about strangling that relationship. And I think that that is a big, flag, a red flag of like something is out of whack in our heart. If we are not, feeling like we need to just do more and really kind of just suffocate the person by trying so hard to regain that friendship. And I've definitely had situations where I felt like someone was starting to pull away from me. And instead of, just reaching out and being like, hey, can we have a conversation about this? Is everything okay? Is there something we need to address? Believing the best and, really getting it out in the open. Instead, I took the approach of let me just try to suffocate them with, over texting, over inviting, over just like being too much for them, that I really pushed them away instead of just being an adult and saying, can we have a conversation about this? And let's be honest with one another. And maybe this was just a friendship that was for a season. Maybe it's, a friendship that is not going to be for the rest of our life. And to be, I think, okay with that. Or maybe you need to have a hard conversation and just talk about things, and that's going to draw you closer.
So good. Yeah, I think I heard once because I never really grew up seeing confrontation handled well. And I wouldn't even say confrontation, but just those harder conversations, right? And so then trying to figure that out as an adult, how to do that well. And I always saw it as more of like a break in the relationship. And my therapist actually said, no, you love that person so much that you want to love them here. And so you're going to have this hard conversation to right the relationship. And even that tiny tweak in mindset kind of helped me to be brave enough to have some of those harder conversations. And they weren't easy and it didn't always end well. But again, I think the more that we practice and the more that we allow ourselves to have those conversations, the better that we get at them, right? It's just like anything, we have to practice.
Yes, and I think, for me, the more that I have become secure in God's love for me and who I am in Christ, and that I don't have to earn other people's love, and that I don't have to change and try to be who other people want me to be. Like, I want to show up fully as myself and bring my whole full self to relationships and recognize that I'm a lot. Like, I have a very big personality and I'm very passionate about things, and that I'm not for everyone. And I think to be okay with that, but also not to feel like I'm to recognize like how to temper that too with not running people over, because I can do that as well. And so finding that balance, but I think once I have gotten to that place of just really being secure in who I am, it has helped me to have so much deeper and stronger and healthier relationships, because I'm not trying to get validation and approval from others, because I know that I am already approved by God.
So good. Yes. I met with a mentor earlier this summer and she gave me the acronym LASS. You are loved, accepted, secure, and significant. And I repeat that to myself often. And I think it's so good for us to remember that, yeah, our worth doesn't come from anybody but God. I think that's such a good reminder. So for the woman listening who's been hurt, or has walls up, what encouragement would you offer her as she thinks about trying again? Because I hear from a lot of women who say, I'm just so tired of trying. I reach out and they say no, or I've just been hurt too bad. I don't want to experience that again. What would you say to her?
I think spending some time really understanding and learning what healthy friendship looks like. After I had the friendship breakup in 2020, I actually spent 2 years just reading and learning and studying healthy friendship. And it was a journey for me of learning, okay, what are red flags in relationships? What actually is a signifier of someone who is a healthy would be a healthy relationship? For instance, one of those for me is, do they have a lot of other healthy long-term friendships? Because if I found that I was always attracted to the person that it was like they didn't have anybody else, so then I was kind of their only one. And there was something in me that wanted kind of that, which was very dysfunctional, but like I wanted to be their one and only. And to get to the place where I want them and I celebrate them having other strong relationships, like that is something that tells me that that's actually the mark of someone who will be a healthier friend. And so learning those types of things has been very helpful for me. And so I would just say it is okay to take time to grieve what you have lost. And I actually think it's really important to take time to grieve what you have lost. And, maybe that is talking to a counselor or a therapist or just someone else in your life who is a safe person who you can just share what you have gone through, what you are experiencing, what you're feeling, and let yourself really grieve that, because it is like a death and it's hard. But then to not let that hold you back, that you never trust again. And so for me, it's been figuring out, okay, what does that look like? What do I want in relationships? What do I hope for in friendships? And then how can I be that friend to others? So then looking for people who are healthy and then showing up fully and being a healthy friend for them. And you mentioned Laura Tremaine earlier. One of the things that I love about things that she has shared in her book is how you can have different friends for different types of needs. And you don't have to have the one and only friend who's going to fulfill every need for you. And that was really helpful for me and really freeing for me to think of, okay, I have some friends that we just laugh and have so much fun together. I have friends who like they are prayer warriors and I'm going to go to them when I need prayer. I have friends who they're the ones that like we get things done together. And I have friends who I can just really confide in and they ask great questions. And so kind of having this mix of people who have different gifts and recognizing that I am not going to go to one person to get everything, but to go to different people in different times and different seasons, that's been really helpful to me.
It's funny that you mentioned that because that was life-changing for me as well. And for this reason, because I think I was treating every friendship the same. And that was almost causing undue tension because not every friendship was the same, right? I had like the friends that I saw at dance class that we just talked on Tuesdays. And then I had these other friends, and that was like my emergency contact, right? And so putting them all in one box almost made it harder for me in friendship than it was necessary. Did you find that as well?
Yes, and I think I would put undue expectations on people. And I think
Mhm.
for me, like recognizing, having a friend, like I had a friend who went through a really difficult divorce the last few years and not expecting anything from her in that season. And like, did I miss getting to share things of my life with her when she was really struggling? Yes, but I knew like that was her season that she just really needed someone to just be with her and let her grieve. And so not having any expectations of her and just freeing other people up to just be and give what they're able to give. And I think a lot of times friendship breakups or friendship challenges can happen when we are expecting something from someone else that maybe they're not capable of giving. Like we're expecting that they would know to text us and ask us how our doctor's appointment went because we told them about it last week. And of course, like we would be the kind of person that we would text and ask, but that might not be their personality at all, but they might be amazing at being able to like bring a casserole over, which that is not my gifting at all. I am not going to be bringing people casseroles, but I am going to be the kind of person that's going to remember to text and ask how a doctor's appointment went or something. And so I think when we don't put those expectations on others, we let them show up as they are. We receive the gifts that they have to bring to the world. And then also, if need be, that we communicate. Like if there is something, if someone we're close to and something is really important to us, communicate that to them. Like I think of when we adopted our son, and I knew that something that was really important to me would be that my friends showed up at his adoption ceremony. And I knew that a lot of basically none of my friends had adopted. And so I knew that they wouldn't know that this was a really important thing. And so I just communicated to them. And I was like, this is really important to me. And I would love for you to be there if you are able to. We just love to have all of our special people around us because this is a really huge day in our life. And to communicate that to them instead of being disappointed because they didn't show up when they wouldn't maybe know to do that because it wasn't something that they'd ever had experience with.
So good. I think the tweak in that is two things, right? What are the expectations that I have, and are those fair to the other person, and communicate what I need. I think that's a big thing. My personality and a real big flaw in my relationships that has resulted in lopsided relationships is I want to be the one that's the friend, but I don't want to necessarily burden somebody with what I have, right? And so I haven't always advocated for my needs, but what you shared is what has resulted, which is disappointment that people haven't showed up, but it's because I haven't communicated, hey, this is what I need. And I think that's so powerful and such, if we think about it, such a tiny tweak to just say, hey, this is what I need. But it's also really scary. But the more that we practice it, the better that we get.
Yes. And also, communicating that, but recognizing, like I know, for instance, at the adoption ceremony, two of my closest friends were not able to be there because of work and because one of them was out of town at something that had already been scheduled months before. And to be like, I'm not going to be hurt or sad I mean, I'm sad that they're not there, but I'm not going to be disappointed in them because I know that they would love to be there. And so to give them the benefit of the doubt and not put an expectation on them that is just unreasonable, but also to let them know, like, this is a really big day. And both of those friends, like checked in on me multiple times that day and did what they could from afar. And that's such a gift. And I think that, when we communicate to our friends also our needs, we are, yes, being extremely vulnerable, but also giving them the opportunity to get to know us so much more. And that's really been my story the last 2 years of me just allowing myself to be needy with others, which is something that is very uncomfortable, very outside of my wheelhouse because I am the one that usually is very confident and capable. And God's just put me in some big situations where I haven't had enough to be able to do all the things. And I think he's just put me there so that I've had to ask for help. I just recently traveled to India, and right before I traveled to India, I had a really, really traumatic thing happen in my life. And so I showed up to that trip very kind of just broken and very exhausted and just in this place of real need. And I didn't even know the people who were going on this trip. It was 8 people. They were a team from our church, but most of them, none of them I knew well, and only a few of them did I even know at all. But I just told myself, you know what? I have to just show up as myself, which is broken and needy right now. And so to allow myself to let other people just love me and care for me and pray with me and pray for me and walk with me, it was the most beautiful thing. And the coolest thing is that within about a day and a half, I felt like I had known these people for years and years. Like I came out of that trip, that 2 week trip, feeling like these were people that I'd known since I was a child. And it was just because I let myself be needy. And I actually told them 3 days in, we were at dinner one night, and I said, I really challenged myself to show up as myself and to really show up fully and to not hold back on this trip. And I said, I have struggled with this lie that if people really knew me, they wouldn't like me. And I said, it has been so beautiful to allow myself to show up fully to this group of 7 other people who I didn't really know at all before this trip. And for you guys to just love me and receive me and just really care for me. And it is just helping to break down that lie that I've believed for so long. And just me even saying that out loud, I think really helped deepen relationships with those people. And it was just so cool to experience that and to allow yourself to not have it all together, to not be the capable one, to let other people carry your suitcase and just like know that like you were tired and you were emotionally exhausted and it was okay.
I always think about the stories that resonate with us. You watch, my kids always make fun of me because if they watch College Game Day, I'm watching the story about, the player, but it's through their vulnerability and the hard stuff that you connect with them, just even through the TV screen. And how much more does that happen in real life in relationship when you share something difficult with somebody? I think about the people that we went to China with and adopted with. We were there for 3 weeks, but those people, I mean, we are like family, if you will, for life because we walk through something so hard together. I think we want to come across as, like you said, perfectly capable, but it's in those vulnerable, hard moments of walking through things with people where we really are bonded to them. And that's where friendship, true, meaningful, deep friendship, where we can help each other, kind of is formed, I think.
Yes. And you mentioned Allie Worthington earlier, and she's also my business coach. And one of the things that she's really been challenging me is to ask for help. And this year has been my year of brave and asking for help. Like those are my 2 things. And it just in little ways, because I realized that for years I never asked for help because I did not want to be the needy one. But by not asking for help, I was actually holding people at arm's length. And so by allowing myself to be needy, I was allowing people to come in and be needed by me, which is that's really where friendship is born and built and strengthened is by needing each other. But if I was always the one that was just the helper and never the helped, it was a lopsided relationship, like you talked about, and I never was able to experience that depth. And so, just for instance, like reaching out and asking for prayer, that is not something that comes naturally to me because I'm thinking, oh, everybody else has so much on their plate. And, for me to ask for prayer for this thing, but I have just been reaching out and asking for prayer. And the coolest thing about it is that I feel like by doing that, I am deepening relationships that I've had for years are getting so much deeper than they've ever been because I'm just allowing myself to say, hey, like I'm struggling and I would love prayer. And then the other thing is for me to feel so carried by other people. And that's just this amazing, beautiful feeling. And so I think to just challenge people, like Ali challenged me, what's one thing you could ask for help for this week? And, it might be reaching out and asking someone to pray for you, or it might be asking for a simple thing like, could I borrow something from you? Or even for me, it's like somebody offers to hold a door open for you or to carry something for you. And I would always just be like, I've got it, I'm good. But you just willingly allow someone else to do something like that. Or if someone offers to help, to take them up on that instead of just thinking like, I'm good, I don't need you.
Such good advice. Okay, so you talk a lot about being the inviter and intentionally reaching out. So we're going to kind of turn back here a little bit, kind of getting people again thinking about the woman who's just like, okay, I want this. I want to these deep friendships. But what does it actually look like to reach out, especially as a busy mom? And are there things that have helped you kind of intentionally kind of put yourself back out there by reaching out?
Yes, I think you have to prioritize it. Like it is not just going to happen. And so start with making space in your week for it. And if you're like, my calendar is so full, you don't understand, like I don't have space. Well, you can get creative. And so I will look at my calendar and I will see, like, do I have a 45-minute window of time or do I have an hour and a half window of time somewhere? Maybe it's you're dropping a child off at some type of activity and you're going to have to pick them up an hour and a half later, and that is a window of time that you could find someone that could get, go out to coffee with you during that time. Or maybe if you have a child who's in sports and they're having a practice, is there a mom that you could just say, hey, do you want to come walk around the ball field with me? It just getting creative like that. But I also think then start with small stakes, like low stakes. And so for me, for a lot of people, it feels like inviting someone to your home for dinner is a lot.
Hmm.
So don't start there. Start with what is something simple that you could do. For me, that is asking someone to coffee because that is even if, I've had some coffee dates that were just awful. I'm just going to put it out there. Like some of them have just been terrible. And real awkward. And but you're only, you can leave after an hour. And so you don't have any sort of obligation long term. And so start with looking around who in your current circle, whether it's a coworker, whether it's someone in your kid's sports, that another mom, whether it's someone at your kid's school, whether it's someone that you see at the gym, whether it's someone at church, like just think about all the places that you currently are involved in. Is there anyone in any of those places that you feel like possibly there could be a spark of relationship? Like I kind of think that is somebody who I might like to get to know better. Start with that. Like that's, and just ask that person, like be the one to be the inviter and just be like, hey, I have just loved getting to know you a little bit and I would just love to get you to know you more. Is there any time in the next few weeks that we could go out to coffee? And, if they say no, they say no. But that is a very simple way to start a relationship. And so many of my relationships have just started with that. Or maybe it's, I have young kids. And so a lot of times I'll be like, could we meet at a park and walk? Or just, our kids play on the equipment. I'm actually going out with one of my friends tonight. We meet at a park because we both have a lot of little kids. And so that is in this season of life, that's what works for us. And so our kids get to play and we get to semi talk. We get about 7 words
Yeah.
in, but we're together. And so just starting with something really simple, I would say something that's no more than 45 minutes or an hour, because if you're really uncomfortable, you can be uncomfortable for 45 minutes or an hour, and then you can leave and you can be like, you know what, that didn't work, and I'm going to try again with someone else. But if you leave and you're thinking, you know what, I feel like there is possible potential that that could be someone that I could develop a relationship with. And I'm like saying possible potential, okay? It doesn't, you didn't, a lot of times, you're rarely ever on the first time that you meet someone are going to be like, wow, this is going to be like my lifelong friend. But if you see possible potential, then say, okay, tell them, send a text and be like, I loved getting together with you. I'd love to see if there's another time in the next few weeks we could, do coffee or have a park date or something like that, and see if they respond and see what they say. And don't be offended if they don't respond or they don't have time to meet or whatever. But the thing that I found is that the more that you do this, the easier it gets, but also the more potential you have for building community. And so I say spread a wide net. I have had seasons where I am building community where I have had dozens of times of reaching out, dozens of coffee dates, play dates, and a lot of those did not turn into a lifelong relationship. But always, if I've put out a wide net of a lot of people and made a lot of invites, there will be a few that have turned into some deeper relationships and some that have really, developed into deep relationship. Another thing that I would say, and I know I'm going long, but I'm really passionate about this, is who can you serve with? Because I've found that serving with others can really deepen your relationship. And so if you go to church, is there serving opportunities at church that can be like two of my closest friends I met through serving in youth group together. The one that I'm going to meet tonight, we bonded and we just hit it off. But 3 years of us putting in all the time of serving in youth group, we just got to know each other really well. And so serving together, whether that's at your kid's school or some other volunteering event or at church, that can be a great way also if you're thinking, I don't really know anybody that I would want to invite to coffee. Well, then start putting yourself out there in those types of situations so that you can meet people that might turn into relationships as well.
I always use the analogy of the red car, right? I always say, and you buy a red car and then suddenly you realize everybody has a red car because that's the way our brain is wired, right? We absorb so much information, our brain can't comprehend it all. So it absorbs what it thinks matters and lets go of the rest. And so I always tell people when you're looking, like, tell your brain, like, I am looking for friendship. Show me, for me as a Christian, I'm like praying, like, okay, God, show me opportunities today. But for the women there listening, like look for the opportunities. And I would say even I was as you were talking, I'm like, even if you're sitting next to someone at your kid's activity, put your phone down and just ask them a question like, hey, how are you today? The weather, or who do you have here today? Or I'm so and so's mom. Because what I have found is you're sitting there anyway, your captive audience for 30 minutes on the sidelines of your kids' baseball game or basketball game. And when we moved to our new town, I was like, I want to know the people that are on my son's team. I want to invest in the people that are sitting in the bleachers next to me. And it literally just took an awkward conversation, me putting down my phone and saying like, "Hey, I'm Solon's mom," or "I'm Vera's mom," and I was new every 2 years growing up, and so I had to get really good at being the one to go first. And I always tell people, nobody is not wanting to be a friend, but everybody feels sort of awkward. And when I realized that, like everybody feels awkward and I could be the one to go first, that kind of changed my perspective too. And I just go into the any place that I go, I think to myself, everybody wants a friend. Who can I talk to today? And the people that don't want to be your friend, they'll make it obvious, but by and large, most people are going to be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad somebody talked to me today," and you going first.
Yes, and that brings up another thing that I meant to say earlier. I had Becky Harling on doing an Instagram live recently, and she was talking about how she goes to every event thinking of 3 questions that she wants to ask the person. And I thought that that was such good wisdom. And so, whether you're going to a sporting event or some banquet, or whether you're meeting a friend for coffee or someone that you've never talked to before, you're meeting, or someone you barely know that you're meeting them, to go into the situation with some questions that has that's really helped me. I kind of, when I'm driving somewhere to meet up with someone, even if I hardly know them or if I haven't seen them for a while, I'm thinking about like, what do I know about them? What do I want to ask about? Because I think that people really appreciate when you care enough to remember things that they've said. And I think that that is one way that we can really show people that we care about them. I was talking earlier about remembering a doctor's appointment. That's something that I try to do, and I think you're so good at this as well, Erin. But like I put on my Google Calendar if I'm talking to someone and they're saying like, yes, on Thursday my child is having an IEP meeting with school, or I'm taking my child in for this scan, or my mother is having this, whatever, putting it on my Google Calendar and then checking in with them that day and just saying, hey, just checking in, how did it go today? That takes you literally, I mean, 30 seconds. But it is a way that it really communicates to people that you care about them and that you are invested in their life. And so looking for simple ways, even in the midst of a very full life, that you can invest in other people. One thing that I do, and Erin, you're so good at that, is sending voice texts to people. I do this a lot. And one of my friends, she texted me a voice text the other day. She's like, this is the first time in my life I've ever done one of these before, but you send me these and I love them so much that I just had to try with you. And, I find that when I'm driving, it is a great way if I just think of a friend to just pick up my phone and just send her an audio text of, hey, I'm thinking of you. And I just wanted you to know that a lot of times, and Aaron, you do this too, like praying over them, like just sending a voice text where I'm praying over them. These little things, they do not take a lot of effort, but they mean so much to other people. And so looking for ways that practically you can be a blessing to other people. And maybe words are not your thing, but maybe it is, making banana bread for someone or doing something else in that. So figure out what is the thing that you can do and can show love to others, and then just start doing it. Like just do it and keep showing up for other people. I always say you got to experience the awkward before you experience the awesome. And so just put yourself out there and do the awkward things. And the more you do the awkward, I promise you that you're going to find some awesome.
That's so true. And that's good life advice because sometimes life is just awkward, right? But again, I think like any skill, I tell my kids this all the time. It's just like flexing your fear muscle or building muscle in the gym. The more that you practice, the stronger you get, the easier it becomes, the more natural it becomes, right? And you're going to just find opportunities to do that. And it's just going to be an overflow of habit for you. So good. Okay, so how has community helped you to grow? And what have you learned about letting others see the real you? You kind of talked about this, but can you talk to the woman? Like in my book, I talk about in order to have a truly happy life, you've got to have community because truly research shows that's one of the cornerstones of what makes the happiest people happy. So how has having community helped you to grow?
It's interesting because Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith in her book Sacred Rest, she talks about the 7 different kinds of rest, and one of those is social rest. And we don't think about that, but how spending time with life-giving people actually brings rest to our souls. And I have found that to be so true. I need people in my life. Like, I need to spend time with other people. And even when my life is so full and there's so much going on, and it feels like, I don't barely have time to eat. I need time with other people. And so prioritizing it, I notice that I am so much happier, like you said, when I come back with spending time with someone who is life-giving, no matter how many burdens I brought into the situation, I always feel lighter when I leave. And I say, paying attention to the people that make you feel lighter when you spend time with them, that is a marker of someone who is probably going to be a good friend and someone you should prioritize and be intentional with. But then also, I think friends that really challenge you. I was talking about my friend that I'm going to meet tonight. She is so good about challenging me and just pushing me towards the Lord and challenging me to grow. She's always asking the best questions. I have some other friends who we text almost every single day, and we're always checking up on each other. Like, how is your soul doing? Like, how are you feeling about life? And it's just a place that we can just share whatever we're feeling overwhelmed by or whatever we're stressed by, and just having those spaces that you can be honest and you know that people are going to receive you for who you are. And so I have just found that I grow so much by what I learn from other people, by allowing myself to be needy and let other people, serve and help and pour into me. Asking for advice of others, that's something that doesn't come naturally to me. And I've really been working on asking for advice and asking for people to speak into situations and give wisdom. And I learned so much from that and have so many aha moments that I would never have if I was just trying to figure things out on my own.
So good. So good. Okay. Last question before we wrap up. But for the woman who doesn't know where to start, Crystal, what would be one tiny tweak if she gets done listening to this podcast and she says, okay, I need to be more intentional about friendship? What would be the tiny tweak that she could do today? What would you say to her?
I'm going to challenge everyone listening to think of one person, just one person, that in the next 24 hours, you're going to reach out to them. It could be reaching out and asking to get together. It could just be reaching out and being like, hey, I'm thinking of you today, and I just wanted to let you know. It could be reaching out and telling them something that you appreciate about them, calling out something that you're grateful for. But I just challenge every single person, reach out to one person in the next 24 hours. It is amazing when you do this and then you start doing this regularly. It is crazy how simple little interactions, like a text that took you 15 seconds to write, like those types of things can be the building blocks of really strong community.
It's almost like a tiny tweak really does have a big impact. Oh, okay. Well, I ask every single guest that comes on my podcast this question. Speaking of tweaks, I love a good tiny tweak. So, has there been something, a tiny tweak, that has made your life easier, lighter, or happier that you've implemented recently?
Well, just the last 2 days, I have been doing something that has been actually really helpful to me. And that is, we were talking about my business coach. She's having me audit my time. And that's not exactly a tiny tweak, but it can actually result in tiny tweaks. And I don't know if you talk about this in your book, but I've loved Laura Vanderkam has a book, Off the Clock, and she talks about the importance of really knowing where your time goes. And last week, I was meeting with Allie, and I was just saying, like, I feel like I don't have enough time to do all the things I need to do. And she said, well, until I can help you figure out what to change and delete and delegate, we got to figure out how you're spending your time. And so the last 2 days, I've just been keeping track of every 15 to 30 minutes what I'm doing. And I am finding that to be so insightful. And then from there, I'm going to make some tiny tweaks. Don't know what they're going to be yet, but I'm going to. And so I would just challenge people, if you feel like you're overwhelmed with your life or you have too much on your plate, to actually, be accountable to how you're spending your time and figure out, okay, where is my time actually going so that you can make those tiny tweaks.
Ironically, the Laura Vanderkam is another guest on the Tiny Tweaks Happy Life podcast series, and she talks about this exact thing. So if they're listening, they're gonna feel compelled to audit their time because now they've heard it from two experts.
I love that. And I love Laura Vanderkam. So if you have not listened to that episode, you need to, because she is fantastic and she has impacted my life so much for many years.
Yes, I love her as well, and just the way that she approaches, like she said, yeah, like you said, time management. And I think what you'll find and what she shares is we're actually doing more of what we think we're doing than we originally think, right? Like we're actually probably getting more sleep than we think, or we're actually doing more with our family than we think. But until we can see it on paper, then we don't know. And I talk a lot about this in the book, but awareness is your superpower. When we're aware, we can make changes. And so you're giving yourself the power of awareness with your time, which I think is such a powerful tweak.
Yes, and it also can help you, the tiny tweak for me of just recognizing, like you said, I'm doing a lot. Oh,
Mm.
wow. I mean, I think that was the thing of just recognizing my day is very full. Okay, there's a reason why maybe I'm very tired at night. And just to celebrate that, Allie was so good last week of just encouraging me to actually recognize all the things that I was doing and to celebrate that. And that for me, like I got off that phone call with her and I told my husband, I was like, I am so encouraged. Nothing has changed, but I'm so encouraged because I realized, oh, I am doing it. And I think giving yourself credit for what you're doing can change your perspective instead of just feeling like I must not be managing my time well.
I love that. And I think that goes right back to friendship, right? Like acknowledge and celebrate the little ways you're reaching out and being a friend because over time, I've heard it said, focus less on your goals and the trajectory in which you're going, right? Like if you're not achieving your goals at the time you want, like if you don't have a friend yet, but are you on the trajectory to make a friend by the actions you're making today? And I think that that's really powerful.
Yes, I love that. And, are you going around and just making little tiny investments in other people? Because you never know when those seeds are going to sprout into something really beautiful. And so continue to make those little tiny investments, and I promise they will pay off.
Oh, I love this. Okay, Crystal, where can they find you online if they aren't already following you? Give them all the details. Of course, it'll be in your show notes, but they're going to want to get on their phones right now and hit follow.
So my blog is moneysavingmom.com, especially as we are heading into the Christmas season. We share a lot of deals on all sorts of things that people need, just and in general life. Like we love to share deals on groceries and household products as well. And then my Instagram is the Money Saving Mom, and I love to share behind the scenes of having six kids, ages almost 21 down to three, and one who has significant disabilities. And then my podcast is called The Crystal Paine Show.
Well, Crystal, you have been a delight. As I said, you are genuine and a great friend and an encouragement. And I know people are going to leave here today a little more encouraged that they're not alone in their friendship struggles, but also empowered to make a tiny tweak to reach out to one person today. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you liked this episode, it would mean so much if you'd share it with a friend or leave a quick rating and review so others can find our show. Until next time, you can find me at Simple Purposeful Living on Instagram and Facebook.